So first of all, congratulations for making the early hour for Zazen Kai. You've already accomplished enlightenment, Elizabeth, and everyone. Um, this will be just a brief meditation instruction and going over our kind of basic practice. And I think you all probably have done this before or know meditation, but as they say, beginner's mind is full of possibility, and so we all can drop into a space of not knowing and experience what it would be like to practice for the first time. So the first thing, some preparation. It's always good to have a space where you can meditate, whether it's a kind of a room by itself that's a meditation space where you can have an altar, you can have, I see Kuya has a candle, some images that inspire you, or it can simply be, a chair in a quiet space in your place. But something that you can come back to that kind of gets the energy of your practice, the mood of your practice, and you actually carry it with you everywhere else. So any questions about space or what might go into that? I think you all seem, Catherine, I like your meditation chair. I might have one of those in, in the Zendo someday, and then the next piece about preparation is posture. And I'm sure you're all aware of the three different kinds of posture we have that we use for our practice, which is, first of all, sitting in a chair, and then secondly, sitting on your knees on a bench or on a cushion on your knees, and then cross-legged, which has a few different styles. And the thing that unifies all of them is that we want to have a straight spine. So actually, I'm standing here because I'm in my office. So you can also do standing meditation. The Buddha taught the four postures of meditation: standing, sitting, walking, and lying down. And we generally use sitting and walking in the Zendo, and then of course bringing it into our practice and the rest of our life. Famously, Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, realized awakening as he was lying down. So maybe this is also a posture, but not a sustainable one. And that's the key, really, for all of the postures, is sustainability, that we're able to hold a comfortable posture for an extended period, at least 25 minutes, but 40 minutes or 50 minutes, like this Zazen Kai sit in the morning, and Sesshin sits, the first sit is 50 minutes. And so if you can stay still for 50 minutes, whatever posture you can stay still in and not fall asleep is a good posture. And for anyone that has trouble with their bodies, a lying down posture is certainly possible, but since we usually sleep in that posture, it can conduce to falling asleep. So you have to be careful with that one. But generally we do a sitting posture. So if you're sitting in a chair, we say have your back straight, and it's easier to have your back straight if you're unsupported, but you can also have, some support there. And then, so first of all, are there any questions about sitting in a chair or sitting in an elevated way? Okay. And then the next style is on a bench, or we call it seiza, which is kneeling. And you've seen, I'm sure, these benches that fold out and you can sit on them, and that way you don't have to have very flexible hips. You can just be kneeling there, but you need some flexibility in your knees, and you can start to, I don't want to say hurt, but it's like there's a feeling of pressure in your knees after some time, but it usually goes away quickly after you get up. And then the final one, the one that most people use, is some form of cross-legged posture. And there are three forms of cross-legged posture that we often see. The first is just the normal, what they call the easy posture, which is cross-legged, the way you sat when you're a kid probably, and the knees are raised. And so we don't use that for meditation, because if the knees are up and the hips are down, it kind of makes the lower back bow out, your lumbar. And in order to keep your back straight, you need that lower back in. And so the knees on the ground or the knees below the hips is kind of essential. And this is also true actually for the sitting in a chair posture. So knees below the hips, so your back can be straight. And then the two, or actually the three kind of postures that people use um, are the first, the easiest one, the easy posture, Sukhasana, is also called the Burmese posture. And that's the two legs are kind of in front of one's in front of the other one. So no legs are on top of each other. And then there's half lotus. Actually, there's quarter lotus and half lotus. So half lotus, true half lotus, is one leg's on the floor and the other one is all the way up on the thigh. And that's actually, you have to be quite flexible even to do that. Often you'll see a quarter lotus where your leg is actually just on your kind of on your calf, on your lower leg, and that's a nice a way to sit as well. And it provides more stability in a way than when you're fully open. And then there's full lotus where your legs are both on your thighs, and that's the one that's quite difficult for most people and is in a way the most stable, but really only if you're very flexible. And it's not really recommended unless you're a very flexible yogi. So usually it's the easy posture or Sukhasana or the half lotus. And then for another piece of the postures are mudra. So generally people meditate either with their hands kind of on their thighs, but we ask people to meditate with the cosmic mudra. Let's see if you can see this. I think you probably all know it, where your right hand is below your left hand. Your left hand's resting in it. I'll just do it upside down. And your thumbs are lightly touching, and you make a kind of an oval shape. It's also called or did I say the cosmic mudra? The cosmic mudra, you hold the whole universe in your hands, and that's placed around your lower dantian, your hara, which is, let's see, if I do it, my thumbs are about where my belly button is, and my fingers are below that. And you can hold it up, if there's nothing to rest your hands on, that's fine. But it can also have a little bit of tension, and so you can rest your hands on a pillow, or if you're a priest, as Kui might know, on your sleeves. Any questions about posture? Or any additions, any comments for those of you who really have done this before? You might have something. Oh, and that reminds me, another part of our posture is keeping our eyes open. This is a question we often get from beginners or from anyone really. Can I close my eyes when I meditate? And the answer is yes, of course you can close your eyes. And the reason why we recommend keeping your eyes open has a couple parts. One is that we're just, again, like lying down meditation, closing your eyes conduces to sleeping, and so or kind of drowsiness or dullness. And so keeping your eyes open allows your mind to just feel more awake, basically. And but it is important to have a still environment in front of you. So if you were meditating on a busy street, that's fine. That's a different kind of meditation. Definitely you can do that. But for general purposes, you want facing a wall or facing an empty floor, or facing your altar are good spaces. So you keep your eyes open, but there's nothing that's kind of triggering your attention response, and you're open and panoramic. And so we say the gaze should be down at about 45 degrees. So if you're actually sitting on the floor, it's about 2 or 3 feet in front of you, and you want your eyes to remain still. And so you can find a point on the floor or whatever you're looking at that your eyes are resting on, and you're not focusing on it specifically, like I'm looking at the H on my keyboard, but you know that the H is in the center, and you're aware panoramically and of everything from the peripheral, top and bottom, and left and right. And why it can be good to have a point or a spot that you're resting on is that then you can notice if your eyes move. And the eyes and the mind are very tied together. If your eyes are moving involuntarily, you're almost certainly thinking. And so that can be a sign like, oh, my mind is thinking. That's another reason too we keep our bodies as still as possible and relaxed, is when the mind begins to think, we can actually notice it in our bodies. Different tensions, different kind of pulls, different sensations will arise even before the thought comes. And at least simultaneously with a thought, you'll feel something, somewhere in your body, some tension. And purposefully relaxing that tension in your body will often help release a thought, and you can let that go and come back. And so come back to what's our focus? In our practice, we're quite simple. We start with the breath, and our focus on the breath is typically in our hara, in our lower abdomen. And the reason is, often people will start with the breath at the nostrils, or the breath, feeling the breath come in. And if you think about it, breathing, if you're imagining your breath coming in through your nose and down into your lungs and then out, that's actually a visualization. That's not actually what you're feeling. You don't feel, breath moving so much. You feel perhaps a coolness in your nose, a coolness in the back of your throat, and you feel your belly expand. If you're feeling your lungs expand, that's a deep breath. But it's not even your lungs, because you can really, what you feel is your chest expanding. And so we really say, come back to the actual physical sensations of breathing. Where are they in your body? And our focal point, kind of like when we were looking at the floor but not focusing on it, your focal point is in the hara, in your lower abdomen. And you're not kind of focusing on it in a way that ignores the rest of your experience. You're resting your awareness in your belly, and you're aware of all the other sensations in your body and mind. So what that means is, if something were to arise in that field, you would notice it, right? So if you're kind of looking panoramically at the floor and you see somebody walk by, you'll notice them walk by. If you feel a twinge in your knee, you'll notice that. And our practice is to allow the sensations throughout the sense fields to arise, and let them go, and let them be. Actually, you can both work, but let it be is a little bit more of a welcoming, inviting feeling. I think that's it for preparation, and we can dive into a bit of guided practice. But before we do, if there are any questions or comments, now's the time. Now is always the time, but
Kodo, it's Elizabeth.
hi, Elizabeth.
For a number of years, I have not been able to sit on the cushion. I've been sitting either in a chair or on my sofa because I was having trouble with my my hips.
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered, because I had sat for many decades in a half lotus, and what I've discovered just in the last few months is, if I give up, if I relinquish my half lotus and sit simply cross-legged, I am able, in fact, to sit on a cushion, which I'm much happier doing than sitting in a chair. But just the change, and I'm just sharing this for those who might also have difficulty sitting on a cushion, that I found that changing the cross-leggedness, the way in which I'm crossing my legs, actually relieved the discomfort. And it was not just discomfort with so hard on the body to sit for a long time, but I mean, I really was unable to maintain a cushion and then stand up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can be really hard on the
So
hips and knees. Yeah.
yeah, well, getting up was was virtually, it was an ugly matter getting up. But
Yeah.
I'm finding that with the shift in the way in which my legs are crossed, and still with the knees down, that and a firmer cushion behind me,
Yeah.
higher,
Yeah.
that have been able to go back to um, what for me is a much more desirable sitting posture on a pillow. So
Hmm.
just want to share that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful, Elizabeth. And yes, whatever posture is sustainable, that you can sit in comfortably is the right posture. So great to find something that works for you. And I'm glad, you know, you're not in pain and you can get up easily. Getting up's not always easy, but our goal is that after say 5 minutes that there's no pain. So there might be pain when you first arise from a posture, any posture you'd sit in for almost an hour. There might be some feeling of like having to unbend your knees, especially in sesshin when you're doing that for 9 hours a day. But then several minutes later or an hour later, there shouldn't be any pain in your knees or hips. And if there is, then to look at that posture is good. But great that you did that. And I'd love to see. It's hard for me to kind of visualize what you're talking about. So I'd love to see it sometime since you're in Santa Fe. All right. So let's do some practice. So find that posture, whatever you're comfortable in. This will only be maybe 15 minutes. And we're going to do, if you've seen this, Roshi calls a meme or our meditation instruction, this blue square. It has these 6 steps or stages or phases, I think is the most appropriate, 6 phases of our practice. And so I'll use that to go through and to guide this meditation. So the first phase is to settle the body and find your posture. And Dogen and Fukan Zazengi even says to find your center, you can rock side to side, like very slightly or front to back, just finding that space of uprightness. Your spine is in a neutral position as if you were standing. And to begin this, we can take 3 slow, deep breaths, settling onto your seat, allowing your awareness to permeate your whole body. Now, as you're settled here, perhaps as the beginning meditation bell rings, call forth your intention for being here. What is your heartfelt aspiration for yourself and the world? And in our school, our practice, we say cultivate an altruistic motivation to benefit all beings, which includes yourself. So you can make up your own language, but something like, may this practice, may this meditation session help me to stabilize my awareness so that I can be of benefit to all beings, present with the suffering of others, open and helpful in any way I can. And it can be helpful to call to mind someone or some being or even some place that is really suffering right now, that you really feel a connection with. may I be of benefit to that person, to that situation. Through my practice, may I cultivate goodness in the world. Allowing the feeling of compassion to permeate the body and suffuse your awareness. That's the second phase, recalling your intention. And then the second part of the intention, what are you actually doing on the cushion during this session? It's good to have a sense. I am going to do mindfulness of breathing. Or I'm going to do, if you have other practices, your compassion practice or your body awareness, let's say, and I will focus on the breath at my hara. And if my mind wanders, I will bring it back as swiftly as possible with gentleness and ease and enjoyment of the stillness of my body and the occasional stillness of my mind. So with your intention recalled, we move into the third phase of mindfulness of breathing. And here we can choose to count the breaths to start with. And you have to see, how is your mind doing? Is your mind very busy? Is it really want to go to the future or the past, or to think about the thing that that person said? You might need a strong mindfulness tool, like counting the breaths to 10, coming back again and again. And just to know it's not mindfulness of counting. It's really, the point is to be aware of the sensations associated with breathing throughout the body. And that you can, at the end of each out breath, make a count. So for example, you'd be breathing in, breathing out, 1. I'm just going to mute you, Ed, if that's okay. Breathing in, breathing out, 2. And you make the count short and at the end of the breath, so you're not inclined to mindfulness of counting so much. You're really with the breath. And for some people, counting can become quite automatic, and you might end up at 53 and you were actually completely lost in thought. And so it's useful to have a stopping point. Often we say 10, but you could make it 11 or 13, something that helps you, that gives you a reminder. Yes, come back to 1. And so when you reach 10, you come back to 1, you begin again. And if you make it to 10 with your mind quite present in your body, you can even have a moment of quiet congratulation. That's a wonderful thing, to be fully aware and present with your body and your breath for that long. And if your mind does wander, the thing that brings you back is really the intention that you set at the beginning. Because in a way, you're not really present anymore if you're lost in a thought. But something cues you, something within you wakes up to the moment again. I was not aware of my breath. And instantly you're already aware. There actually isn't a letting go or even a letting be. You've already woken up, and it's a moment to rejoice in a way, to be happy about, to not have don't have a negative reinforcement of like, oh, I was distracted again. No, it's, oh, I'm waking up again. This is our awakening practice, and every time we come back to our breath and our body, we've woken up to reality. So let's do 10 breaths. And if you get to 10 and uh, we're still in it, then go back to 1 and really try to feel the sensations in the body. Where are you sensing the breath? And the breath meaning anything, any sensation. So your clothes on your belly, the movement of feeling throughout your body, the coolness in your throat. All of it is within the field of awareness. And if you find that your awareness is settling in the body easefully, and that it feels like the counting is even extra, then you can even let go of counting. You can always let it go and bring it back as needed. But when you're quite settled and you let it go and you're just with the sensations in the body, it's ever so slightly less crowded. And as you're resting your awareness here in the present moment, the 4th phase might arise. It's not really something you do, but you might notice, you might have insights into the way things are. For example, the impermanence of a sensation. You feel a kind of a twinge in your knee, a pressure, and you notice it. Your awareness goes there while holding awareness in the body as well. And you kind of watch it quietly, allowing it to be, and then suddenly it vanishes. And there's still a sensation in the knee, but it's not the same. And you might have a non-conceptual moment of, impermanence. All things are impermanent. Or you might spontaneously have the thought, well, who is experiencing the sensation anyway? And you might look for that looker, and you don't see anything. There's actually no self there that I can find, although I'm very clearly aware. There's no one that is aware. These are just things that might come up in practice. And it can sometimes, if we have a moment of realization or insight, feel like, oh, we want to write it down or we want to think about it. But it arose from non-conceptuality. And as long as you can stay where you were, the more it might speak to you in that non-conceptual way. So like with all the sensations arising, allow that insight to be and not become more thinking. Be with the feeling of it. And it can fade into the background of your awareness. And you're still present with what's arising in your body. And at this point, you're still aware of the breath, the sensations associated with breathing. Relaxing every muscle that's not required for upright sitting. Especially in the face. Notice if you're carrying any tension, any extra muscle tone in the face that doesn't need to be there. We so often carry our personalities in our faces. Just relax. And if you feel quite stable and quite clear and undistracted, you might even let go of the intention to stay with the breath at all, to stay with the breath specifically. And so you can even let that go and release any notion of focused, single-pointed attention and completely open up to whatever is arising in the field of awareness. Single-pointed focus, where the single point is the whole world. And this is the fifth phase of shikantaza, or just sitting. It can be a wonderful practice to come to this for at least a few moments in every session, just to feel it. What is it to release all top-down functioning and relax into the moment with no agenda, with no control, just being with what is. And if the mind moves and starts to think about other things, then you can come back to the breath, and you can come back to counting. Whatever is necessary to try and stabilize the mind. You stabilize it and then you let go. That's kind of the cycle. Stabilize and let go. And then as we move to the final phase, often this part, the dedication of merit, will happen after the bell rings because you don't know when the bell's going to ring. So the bell rings and we come into Gasho and we bow. And at that moment, you can feel and think whatever goodness has arisen, whatever merit has been generated by my practice today, may it be dedicated to my original intention, to the freedom of suffering for all beings. And then the bell will, the other bell will ring and we'll stand up and we'll go to the next thing. Wow, Elizabeth, you became enlightened over the course of this meditation. That's amazing. It was completely dark.
The dawn broke and
Beautiful.
yeah.
So thank you all for sitting with me. And I wonder if there are any other comments or questions at this point about the practice we just did. Oh, wonderful. And then the last thing we usually say during these meditation instructions is as we transition to the Zendo, they'll, in about 5 minutes, begin Kinhin. And for those who don't know about Kinhin, Kinhin is the word that means walking meditation or walking practice. And are you all familiar with our style of Kinhin and how we do it? Is anybody not familiar? Oh, okay. What's that, Catherine?
I witnessed it from the outside as an observer.
Uh-huh.
So I would love to hear the description, your description of it.
Okay. Yeah, great. And with it, you'll notice from the outside is when we rise, we turn around, we kind of fluff our cushion. We just get it ready for when we'll come back to it. We bow to our cushion, we turn, and we bow to the community. And then you'll hear a clack, and everyone will turn to their left, and then there'll be another clack, and then there'll be a bow. I mean, sometimes they turn to their right, depending on where they are. And so you bow, and then you put your hands in shashu, which is our general posture for walking around. And it's your thumb is within your left hand, and your arms curled around, and your right hand just on top, with your thumb resting on top of that. And so we carry ourselves like this. And then we're really trying to maintain that same, whatever awareness we were cultivating on the cushion, our breath awareness. And as we move into walking meditation, and we start walking slowly, one step, one breath. And each step is about a foot length. So we'll fall, in the middle, kind of your toes, 1 foot or around the middle of your next foot. And you're just maintaining awareness of the breath, feeling your feet on the floor. And if we're doing fast Kinhin, after you take a couple steps, there'll be 2 clacks, clack, clack, and then everyone will walk quickly around the Zendo, and that helps spread us out and get blood flowing into the knees, into the body. And that lasts about maybe 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. And there'll be a clack, and everyone stops and makes a small bow and continues the slow walking. And then after about 10 minutes, there'll be another clack. There's a slight bow, and everyone walks quickly along the Zendo lines back to their cushion, bow to the cushion, turn, and wait in Gasho until there's a bell, and then everyone bows and then sits down. And it can be wonderful to, once you've practiced kinhin in that way, just like with meditation, you can take it and practice normal walking kinhin when you're wonderful thing. If it feels like a wonderful, like you have this special tool or special, maybe somebody could help me with a word of that you don't feel like you have to fill your time with something. You actually, you have with your practice that you can carry with you, you can feel like I'm just sitting here at the stoplight and I'm not wasting my time. I'm not like waiting for it to change. You know, I'm here breathing in my body. Or I'm just, when I'm walking from one place to another, if it's not for exercise, it's like, I wish I could just be there instantly, right? No, it's like I'm walking and I can maintain my awareness and I have a moment of practice. And all of these moments of practice that we can find in our day, they seem to arise when we have a morning practice or a daily practice. The other times, meditation will show up for you, and then you're sitting there and people are honking, and or somebody says something, and all of a sudden your stable awareness arises, and you're able to witness it without reacting, and that's where our practice really shows up and supports us in living the way we would like to be living. Any questions about that, Catherine, or anyone else? Kinhin?
Yeah, that gives some suggestion of what to do here at home. It's so different being on Zoom and watching,
Yeah.
Versus being in the Zendo.
Yeah.
So
What do you do during kinhin? How do you?
I'll walk around the house. I have some open format here, so I can walk around things, but it's more, it's not the fast, slow. It's just slow, feeling my,
yeah.
But I'll try that.
Yeah, and if there isn't space to do fast kinhin, you can, when we do that, you can stretch your body, kind of move your knees around, something to get the blood flowing, and it helps also because there can be, if in our practice we're so still and we move so slowly that if our body only identifies mindfulness with slowness, well, then we'll lose it when we go fast. So actually, one of the purposes of the moving fast is like, how do you move fast with mindfulness, with like all the concentration that you were building up in your meditation, and then you take it and you can move quickly. And that's a kind of revelation in itself. It's like you can actually be completely mindful in the midst of every activity, theoretically. And so that helps us train in that of moving quickly and maintaining mindfulness. So even if you don't have space to walk quickly in your house, find something where you're like, do some mindful jumping jacks. I haven't tried that, but it'd be interesting. Anything else before we join in kinhin and the Zendo?
No, I just would like to thank you. I found that both your descriptions and the way in which you join things to be some new information for me to think about or to embrace. And I've sat through so many of the instructions, and I want to thank you, Kodo, because I thought this was particularly meaningful and helpful for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. And thank you for your presence, all of you.